This is Michael Popok. It's time for Legal AF After Dark, the After Dark edition. We got to talk about the Supreme Court circling the drain of history, along with its Chief Justice Roberts, and Sam Alito and his wife, and Clarence Thomas and his wife, and all of the ethical challenges that have happened on the Supreme Court, rendering them to be incapable of governing, incapable of being one of our three co-equal branches of government. For a functioning democracy, we need to have a Supreme Court that people trust, but we don't. And it starts with the wives, and it starts with the husbands, and it starts with the people on the Supreme Court and their lack of ethics. We break it all down on the recent episode of Legal AF, the podcast. Take a listen. Karen, why don't you lead on your favorite story today? I wouldn't deny you that. That pleasure. On the Supreme Court in crisis, we've talked about it at length. People know about Alito, at least the basics. They know about Judge Thomas, and now we have to learn about, for whatever reason, wives of Supreme Court justices. Let me just leave it with this, and I'll turn it over to you. In my entire legal career, until about 5 years ago, I barely, if even, knew the names of the Supreme Court justices' wives or husbands. They were just that person that stood next to them uncomfortably during swearing-ins whenever the Supreme Court justice was nominated and then sworn in. And then you never saw them again. In law school, you could put a gun to my head, as long as we're talking about guns on this episode, I could not tell you the name of Justice Berger's wife, Justice Warren's wife, just you name it, Antonin Scalia's wife. I have no idea, except now I have to know that right now frequently because of MAGA and the Supreme Court justices. We used to think that they were independent. We used to think that they may not be our politics, but they were making the right decision for America. Forget all that. Why don't you talk about what's going on with Justice Alito and his wife?
Yeah, look, so there's this whole flag controversy that's in the backdrop of all of this, right? There's people noticed that there was this upside down American flag in front of their primary residence, and then I think the New York Times found that, and then the New York Times also found that there was another flag at their beach house that is affiliated with January 6th and the insurrectionists. And, you know, as you said, they're supposed to be completely neutral. I mean, they're so neutral that if you've ever watched the State of the Union, no matter if if the president is a Democrat or a Republican, it takes place in the House chamber, and they literally will sit there and not stand or clap for any issue ever. You've got, if you got a Democrat president, you've got half the room standing up and screaming, when he says certain things, and the rest just sit there. And then Republicans, same, right? Like, it's just crazy to me. They absolutely, they absolutely just sit there. Some even, Popok, you just pointed out in our private chat, some don't even go, because that's how neutral you're supposed to remain, okay? So again, like, that's how it's supposed to be. And you want it to be that way. You're a judge, you're supposed to be above it all. You leave your partisanship at the door. Anyway, so that's the first thing that's been going on, okay? So what happens after the flag flying? Justice Alito sends the most bizarre letter I've ever seen, to Congress about it, because they were asking about it, where he says, it wasn't me, it was my wife, and basically threw her under the bus. I didn't like it. I told her to take it down, and she had different ideas and did it anyway. And P.S., it was about a neighbor. It was a dispute with the neighbor, and it had nothing to do with Jan 6 and the insurrection. Okay, puts that in a letter to Congress. And what happens next? The neighbor comes on to CNN and says, that is not at all how it happened. The flag was up first. It was up between the time of January 6th and the inauguration. Okay, that's when he flew the upside down flag. So it was after the Jan 6th tried to take over. Okay, and prior to the inauguration, that's when the flag was up. That was what he was protesting, or she was protesting. And P.S., the issue I had with the wife, that wasn't until the next month in February. And guess what? If you don't want to take my word for it, there's a police report. I called the police because she came after me. And after that, there were these Secret Service cars parked out in front of my house, and I felt intimidated. I thought maybe she's trying to intimidate me by putting, her security detail out in front of my house. So there's a date so he lied to Congress, right? And in that letter, which is a crime, P.S., and it's just not the truth. So you got that in the background. Then there's this dinner that's supposed to be this, I've never been, this like really storied, amazing dinner where you go pay a lot of money to get there, and you kind of hobnob and rub shoulders with important people, including Supreme Court justices. And there is a reporter who went to the dinner. Apparently, maybe you know more about this than I do, but I believe she hid her identity and kind of went undercover. And she got this woman, this wife, Justice Alito's wife, to say things that are better. If we can play what she said, I cannot even describe it because it's that crazy. So Salty, if you can play that clip, if we have it loaded.
Meow, 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 meow.
Okay, she's crazy. Okay.
Was that wait? I'm sorry. Was that actually? I'm sorry. Let's frame it. That was Marta Alito making a cat sound?
Well, others will say she was talking about Mao as in Chairman Mao, not meow, but it certainly sounds like a cat sound to me.
Where did she do this?
This is part of the same. This is a longer.
Gala?
Yes, at the gala. Salty, do you have the whole recording? Can you play the whole recording? It's not that long.
Okay.
Listen to
Talk
this
about
recording.
it while we tee it up. Go ahead.
So essentially, she
meow, 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 meow. Sorry, I just had
she talks about essentially. I mean, there's one part in there that she's basically talking about getting revenge to the media because the media called one of her outfits. She looked like a lazy boy recliner, what she was wearing, her suit.
Sorry.
And she didn't like it, so she's like, I'm gonna get them, and how she like called one of these reporters to say, I hope you were wearing a Balenciaga. It's just weird more than anything else. But there was one part in there where that really caught my attention. So she was talking about the feminazis, saying basically that her husband can't control her, okay, when it comes to these flags. So again, contradicting her husband. But then she says, after talking about the feminazis, right, she says, if they come after me or they come back to me, my heritage is German and they will know, like, I'm sorry. Is she threatening? Like, is this like a Nazi thing? I don't know. This woman is just absolutely batshit, but dangerous, crazy, given who her husband is. I mean, if she was just anybody else, whatever, just be crazy, right? But
and the sad part is she's not any crazier than Ginny Thomas, who literally was in a cult and needed to be deprogrammed before she found the Tea Party movement.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. We promised the audience as soon as Salty's ready, he's gonna keep talking about.
I want people to listen for three things. Number one, is she saying Mao, right, as in Chairman Mao, right, or is she saying meow? Like, because again, very weird. Is this German reference on the heels of calling feminazis? Is that kind of a Nazi, a veiled, Hitler Nazi reference? And then just listen to the friggin' crazy, her dream flag, because this is all threatening. This is all threats over nonsense, over someone talking about her clothes. Like, and that's why I thought it was meow, meow, because she sounds like she's a cat fight. These people are talking about her clothes and then she's like, meow, meow. Like, yeah, exactly. But then,
go ahead.
But then just the crazy part of this, she's crazy. Like,
Well, before he brings it on, let me I'll give the Alito part. So this gala that Karen has spoken about, is one that, frankly, the Federalist Society and Leonard Leo has used for years to rub elbows with the Supreme Court justices. It's their gala. It's a fundraiser for them, but it's a way in like sitting ducks. The Supreme Court justices are all there, and that's where you lobby them. And so the Federalist Society has no problem coming in and overtly lobbying these right-wing MAGA. It's not the left that's being, or the moderates that are being lobbied. It's the 6-3 majority. They've been doing it for years. He used to Leonard Leo and others used to brag about this gala as instant access to the Supreme Court. So to hear them clutch their pearls, as we like to say on this podcast, about, oh, the journalist was underhanded. She didn't identify herself. She said she was a fellow Christian when she was setting up and trapping Alito with the questions. Like, I'm a fellow Christian, and I just think the Supreme Court has a role in setting the moral compass for the United States. Don't you think so, Justice Alito? Yes, I do. Yeah, that is one of our roles. And and we're
Justice Roberts. Justice Roberts, in fairness, said no.
See, I always say that the character is not what you do when people are watching. Character is what you do when nobody's looking. And Roberts, even though he's circling the drain of history, is one of the worst chief justices we've ever had. When he was asked in a secret recording what he thought the Supreme Court's role was, he didn't take the bait. He said, no, that's not the Supreme Court's role is not to make this a Christian country. And I don't think we are a Christian country in that way. No, that we're not here to set the moral compass for the country. We're here to call balls and strikes and establish, and declare law up or down. And he walked away. Not Alito and not the wife. Okay. So, are we okay? That's Karen's asking Salty. Are we ready for this Mau?
Okay.
Okay.
Salty, play the clip.
It's okay. It's okay.
No, but it makes me so angry.
Don't get angry.
It makes me so angry.
Don't get angry. Get angry. Bye, baby. Bye, cat. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow. She's a bad girl.
Cat's escort, Lewis.
Hi, Lewis. Good to see you.
Likewise.
I'm Natasha. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Natasha. Yes, we're never going back to Wounded Warriors, I'm afraid.
Isn't that awful, though? Why?
Oh, because
there are
of the
fewer of them,
security,
but,
the security and all that. It's good we did that. We did that. Wonderful. You know.
You really did? Something to be really proud of.
Collection of flags from you.
Do you know that they created and ran the Wounded Warriors program here?
You would never know that because of how they're trying to persecute.
Oh, ignore all that. The reality
I don't need their approval for anything in my life. I need nothing from them.
You don't, but the problem is that they use you to fuck. Pardon my language. Pardon my language.
Wait, who's
Your buyer.
Lewis, I like you.
You deserve it. Thank you.
Take care.
They're persecuting you, and you're like a convenient stand-in for anybody who's religious.
Look at me. I'm German. I'm in Germany. My heritage is German. You come after me, I'm going to give it back to you. And there will be a way. It doesn't have to be now, but there will be a way. They will know. Just don't worry about it. God.
All right. Well, first of all, the cat, it's a cat sound because the person's name was Cat and she was playing off, I don't know why it was Cat, and it was Mau. And she is definitely making a Hitler reference about she knows how to get back at people because she's German from Germany, and revenge is a dish best served cold. And at the end there, she's fucking batshit crazy. And the fact that, look, I'm all about spouses having the First Amendment right to do things, but when she says I'm going to get back at them, but you won't know how, that suggests she's going to manipulate her husband, who is a sitting Supreme Court justice, to make rulings. And you're right, she can get back at America in a way that Ginny Thomas too, that none of the rest of us can. It's not about First Amendment rights. It's about her husband is a lawmaker and is an out of control, radical judicial activist for the Christian right, and freely acknowledges it, except he didn't realize he was being recorded.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, look, I think about when I was nowhere near the level, obviously, of a Supreme Court justice, but I was the number 2 at the Manhattan DA's office. I was a public servant. I took that role really seriously. And my husband was a criminal defense attorney who regularly conducted business before the office, had cases, and I would recuse myself completely, both at work and at home. I'll never forget where I was when there was a really, really high profile case that my office was investigating, and it was involving Dominique Strauss-Kahn, who was the chairman, president, whatever he was, of the international bank or something. I can't remember now what it was, but huge position, right?
The IMF, right?
Yes, exactly. The International Monetary Fund. That's right.
Yep.
Exactly. Thank you. I try to put these things are in the past, and I try never to think about them again. Anyway, I recused myself both at home and at work completely. And it's a real recusal, people, we could have whispered, whatever, it'd be the easiest thing to do, but we didn't. And he took my job really seriously as much as I took his job seriously. So he never asked me weird questions. I never asked him weird questions. And it wasn't hard. We respected each other. I'll never forget where I was the day, sitting at home, and I was on my computer, and all of a sudden it pops up that the Manhattan DA's office is dismissing the case against Dominique Strauss-Kahn. That was a huge case in my office, huge, okay? Charged with rape. They stopped him from going on an airplane, and that they're dismissing that case. That's a huge deal for the Manhattan DA's office and a huge win for my husband. I mean, my God. And I remember looking up, and I looked at him, and he goes, "Oh, did it just come out?" Because he saw the look on my face, the shock, okay? He would never, ever put me in a weird position by sharing things with me, telling me things. He did his thing, and I had nothing to do with it anyway, because I was recused at work. And we took that so seriously in every case that when I see things like this, when I see a wife who doesn't respect her husband's role in any way, and clearly he doesn't mind, it just shocks me. And as a nation, we can and should do better. And yeah, you have a First Amendment right, but you are his wife. And if your wife, who you have a special relationship with, so much so that under the law, there's something called the marital privilege. You cannot be compelled to testify. What you say is secret. What you say is in the sanctity of your marriage, it's protected by law. That relationship is special. And so it gives you an obligation. And if you can't kind of handle that, then maybe you shouldn't be a Supreme Court justice. I think it's outrageous, both him and Ginny Thomas, with her basically being part of the insurrection on January 6th.
Agreed. And you hit the nail on the head with the description of it as a special relationship. You're not just Jane Doe, Citizen Doe. And can't use that term anymore because of other references. But you're not. You've married somebody who is one of 9 people that make up an entire branch of our government, and one that is responsible to be our chief lawgiver when it comes to our constitutional principles. And so that special relationship doesn't allow you to have pillow talk with your husband or wife, depending upon the spouse, in order to influence policy, and you need to put up a wall, in the world of financial services we call it a compliance wall, and that's the problem. There are no walls that are put up between these justices and the outside world, and outside influencers, and outside MAGA, and outside right-wing fundraisers and Federalist Society members, and even their own wives. And that's the problem. And they show that they have no regard and a total disregard for, as at the Supreme Court justices level, from basically putting up that wall and saying to them, I can't do this. You can't do this. Don't talk to me about this. And don't display things on the House that would give rise to people feeling insecurity about our justice system, and and an appearance of impropriety or of being partisan. Can't do that. Can't do that at any judge level, and you certainly can't do it, or shouldn't be able to do it at the Supreme Court level. But then you've got the MAGA right wing and Lindsey Graham. He's always good for something, basically opposing the attempts to strengthen the ethics code which just got put on about 6 or 8 months ago and seems to not be working for the United States Supreme Court justices. I mean, I want to live in a world where the justices are above reproach, instead of you and I having to talk about not just the wives. I want to make it clear. We're not just talking about the wives qua wives, the wives as wives, or spouses as spouses. We're talking about them influencing the outcome of cases by their domestic lobbying, pillow talk lobbying of their husbands. Ginny Thomas, for instance, is notorious for having said in emails that she'll bring it up with the, I don't know if she said the big guy or the guy, and we knew it was in reference in reading it to Clarence Thomas. You're going to bring that up with Clarence Thomas while cases are in front of him? I mean, if that went on, we would just call that what it is, and what you would have called it in your prosecutor's days, public corruption. Whether you bribe somebody or you improperly lobbied them for a certain outcome, that is corruption at the highest levels. And I don't think, and I said this at the top of the hot take, hot take at the top of I'm hot, so it's a hot take podcast, that our democracy depends on the legitimacy and the integrity of all three co-equal branches of our government. And when we have a criminal president who's running a kleptocracy in the White House, and then maybe people are thinking about returning a criminal president, literally a criminal president, back to the White House, that delegitimizes, in a way the framers and the founding fathers never anticipated, one of the only three branches of government that we have for checks and balances. Just as when MAGA takes over Congress and makes them a do-nothing Congress and uses improperly their oversight powers to go after ordinary Americans like the children and brothers and sisters of the Biden family, or waste our time and our money and our scarce resources, legislative resources, instead of helping Americans with impeachment matters. By the way, we haven't heard about that impeachment process in a while from Mayorkas or for Biden, have we? Right? And interfering, instead of doing their job for which we sent them to Washington, going after and trying to do oversight improperly over the criminal justice system in different states. And so you have that. And now, on top of it all, like a cherry on top, as you said before, the judge is supposed to be on top of this adversarial process. We've got a compromised Supreme Court, not just because it's not in the numbers that I want in terms of the political leanings. I've been alive long enough where there has been a 5-4 and 6-3 majority on what I used to call the Republican side of the aisle, not the MAGA, or the conservative side of the aisle. And I still respected Berger and Warren and Sandra Day O'Connor and others, and Byron White and the rest, even though they weren't my party, some of them. Because ultimately, I may not totally agree with them, and sure, they made some wrong decisions. But at the end, I could agree with the sanctity of the process and respect it. I always respected the office of the presidency until Donald Trump got in it, my entire life, regardless of who was in there. Okay, and the same with the others, but not now. And now is the time that America needs confidence in our justice system and in our judiciary, and we just can't have it with this current makeup. If John Roberts wanted to ensure his place in history in a positive way, he should step down now during the Biden administration and allow Joe Biden to appoint his own chief justice. That's what happened to Roberts. Roberts didn't work his way up from the associate justice to be appointed to be. He was appointed directly to be the chief justice. Step down now. Let Joe Biden take that spot. Right? Yes, it'll be 5-4, but the 5-4 with the new chief justice will be a lot better than what's going on now. But we know that John Roberts is a coward, and he'll never do that. But that is my fantasy, and I did want to share it with our audience. Now you know why we call it Legal AF. And if you don't, join us on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll tell you. The co-leaders and co-founders of Legal AF bring it to you every week at the intersection of law and politics, so you don't have to. You like lawyers talking about things, they know what they're talking about at the intersection of law and politics. You've come to the right place. Legal AF on the MeidasTouch Network. Help them get to 3 million free subscribers. It's hard to believe we're talking about that number, but we're building this network with our bare hands. No outside investors. You are the network you were looking for. It's right here. And nobody tells us what to say. I'm not censored in any way, shape, and form. This is my viewpoint every time I do a hot take or I do something on Legal AF. We don't blow smoke or sunshine. So if you know about Legal AF and that was a clip you've already seen, we really appreciate you for taking the time. Now take it, send it off to friends and family, and please invite them to join our audience. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that was Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Join us Wednesdays, Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then on audio podcast platforms of your choice. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.